Good. So, hi Emma. Good morning. Thank you so much for being my guest in for this podcast episode, "The Life of a Social Media Manager." How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for asking me.
So, before diving and discovering your life story and what do you do for now for VMWare, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, hi, I'm Emma. I live in Melbourne, Australia, but you could potentially tell from the accent that I'm actually from England. So I moved here about 5 years ago, and really it was just for a lifestyle change. And Melbourne and Australia has definitely delivered on that. I get a fantastic outdoorsy lifestyle here, and yeah, the approach to work is very nice. From an academic perspective, my background, my undergrad was in sociology and business, and then I went on to study sustainability for my master's, and then I did digital comms strategy for my postgrad certificate. So very focused on continual learning, and I'm actually a lead mentor at RMIT Online, which is a university here in Melbourne. So I kind of try and pass that on to other people. And then careers-wise, I've been working for about 10 years now, which seems crazy. But I've worked across like sales, comms, traditional PR, marketing, anything from like partnerships and sponsorships, events, digital research, and then of course social media and content, where I am today. And I think it's really valuable, it has been for me at least, to have that varied background, because whilst I can specialize in social media, it makes sure that I understand how my other stakeholders are delivering on their jobs so that we can work well together.
Yeah, and I think it's important to diverse in the beginning your career and do um, more things than focusing on one field to see what's working for you, what we want to do for you as a person. Uh, you are working as a social media and content lead for communication for Asia Pacific and Japan for VMware. Can you describe your job role?
Yeah, sure. So I think it always confuses people a little bit, because I actually sit, like you said, within the communications team, and people typically expect social media and content to sit within marketing. So I guess if anyone's listening to this and they also sit within comms, do send me a message. But my role, I'd say that I focus on the awareness and the advocacy aspects of the marketing funnel. And then if we break it down into the two different areas, so social media, a big part of my role is working with the influencers inside our organization. So our senior executives, as well as our employees, and helping them to really build and share their voice on social media and online more broadly. And then I work closely with our traditional comms PR leads on how we amplify earned media on social media so that we're reaching as many audiences as we can. People typically now use social media as their newsfeed, and we also utilize those channels for owned thought leadership. And then I do a lot around listening as well. So seeing what our community is saying about our brand online, and potentially then feeding that into our content strategy. So from a content perspective, I primarily work with our local executives or subject matter experts, and create content from them to share their perspective. So that might be an article, a video, graphics. And then I work with our global counterparts so that we make sure that we're showing up as a truly global organization. So that includes like leading comms research and thought leadership campaigns.
So I met Emma in London this month at the Social Media Week conference, but at week. So I briefly discussed with her about her role here and what social media and content lead means. So it means more you are more focused on the content side for social media for the people that are working for in this company. Uh, can you tell us what skills do you need to develop for this job role? Because it's quite different that being a social media and managing a brand and I don't know, replying to comments, engaging, creating engaging content. So
yeah, yeah.
what,
Take
how people can get this, and what they should do as career-wise to be in this job role?
it's a really good question. So like my background's digital marketing as well as communication. So I've built skills in those two areas, which then I bring to this role. And when VMware was actually recruiting for the role, it was completely new for the organization and was a bit of a test. And it did take them quite a long time to find somebody to fill the role, because a lot of people that were applying for it had traditional marketing or digital marketing backgrounds, but didn't have those comm skills that they were looking for. So I'd say one of the key skills is copywriting, and being able to write as a individual, or being able to support lots of different individuals who have different tones of voice. So you're communicating in a much more like human nature, rather than like a corporate or transactional tone that some brands will use. I think in addition to that, having really good relationship building skills and the ability to collaborate with lots of different individuals is important, not just within, you know, communications and marketing teams, but actually working with the individuals in the organization. You know, really important for me to build relationships with our executives as well as our employees, that they come to me as that trusted stakeholder within social media, and they trust me when I tell them, you know, this is something that we try on social media. Because for a lot of people, it's quite daunting to really put yourself out there on social media. So you need to build those relationships, build those trusts. And then I'd say just being able to work in a fast-paced environment. You know, this applies probably to anybody that works in social media, but really impacted by like news cycles as well as executive requests. So just being able to like adjust plans and adjust my schedule for the day in a really fluid way works well.
I understand. So I think the key is trust, because you're working with with different people in the organization with different needs. And I think that sometimes you have to give them some feedback. So it's important to have, to build trust in the beginning, and then to come back to you with feedback, with ideas, and so on. Can you describe how you implemented this program, or what VMware did in the beginning to develop this program for the C-level to be on social media and to, I don't know, promote as a person on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think more and more we're seeing this from organizations, but in the past, and still probably in some industries, there was a real reluctance to allow employees to share their voice on social media because of this fear that people would say something wrong. And then when people join our organization, I'm trying to convince them, you know, that it's a positive thing to be active on social media. They kind of remember those conversations that they had where, you know, people talk about, oh my goodness, you could get fired if you say something wrong. And we have never taken that approach as an organization. We always want to educate and empower employees, because at the end of the day, like, I'm an expert in social media. I'm not an expert in the diverse technologies that VMware has, and therefore we need to have these individuals who are the experts in that place sharing this information. At VMware, particularly within APJ, we were really fortunate that the previous leader of our organization, and our new leader is fantastic, but Duncan, when he was in place, he was really, really positive about employee social media advocacy and really saw the value in it. So he was active on social media himself. He was encouraging his leadership to be active, and he was encouraging other employees to as well. And that's super, super helpful for us, because it's not just marketing and comms telling employees to do this. It's actually a senior leader saying, I'm seeing value from this, and I am happy with you spending your time doing this. We have a tool in place, it's called Dynamic Signal, and we use that to host all of our like approved employee advocacy content. So that will be content that we'll be creating from comms, that the marketing team will create, that anybody in the organization could have created, as well as external content, so particularly like media coverage, or we have a really active external community called VExperts. So within that platform, there'll be all the content that people can share on social media, but a tool by itself isn't enough. So we've worked really hard to educate and empower employees to be confident to share their authentic voices on social media. So we run regular social media training for people as they join the organization, as well as, you know, when updates are made to platforms, or just when teams are interested in having a refresher on social media. And we find that that works really well. And then individuals feel comfortable to reach out if they have any questions. We recently had our event series called VMWare Explore. So we also ran competitions with employees during that time to encourage them to create their own user-generated content. People have the opportunity to be really creative. They're not restricted by the same brand requirements that we have as an organization, and they're creating this really like raw, authentic content, which actually enables us to reach our audiences in a different way.
I think that it's really important to have a leader, maybe a manager who understands social media, who is active on social media, and to see the importance of employee advocacy program, and to develop this type of program. And for those who doesn't know, that VMWare is not a traditional company. It's actually cybersecurity. Am I saying right? So it's difficult to have a presence and to build a voice for this type of industry. So I think that was I found Emma's story really interesting and that's why I invited to this podcast. Why it's important to communicate as an employee on social media? I know that there are some benefits for the company, but what are the benefits for me as an employee?
Yeah, and I would just say with VMware, like we definitely cover like cybersecurity. We've got lots of different solutions that we offer. We're typically known as a cloud provider, so we work with lots of the other big cloud providers. But yeah, very complex organization. So we'll have individuals that will obviously be talking about like cybersecurity, whilst others will be talking about like a completely different area of the business. And that's what works well with their networks. So, you know, from the employee perspective, that's really important, because the people that they're trying to target aren't, you know, just following the VMware brand channel and getting all of that information. They're also getting content that's really tailored to them, which really helps us move the needle. So yeah, going to your question on, you know, why it's important or valuable to employees, something that I followed for a number of years is Edelman's Trust Barometer. So this looks at like where individuals have trust. And if you look at that, we've seen over the years that there's been this steady increase in the trust that individuals have with CEOs, but even more so with employees and with people like them. So we know that this is important for a brand. So how do we communicate that to employees? Well, we really help them to see the value in what they're doing. So by empowering them and giving them the tools they need to create impactful content, they'll then start to have engagements with individuals that are important to them, that help them improve things whatever that might be. So for some people that could be just simply building a presence and building a network, whereas for others that can actually translate into sales. I mean, LinkedIn have loads of data on this around people who partake in online selling in comparison to those that don't. But obviously what we saw during the pandemic for a lot of countries was that people could no longer have this face-to-face interaction, and ever more business shifted to online, and being active on social media was really important for people at that time.
Yeah, and I still is continuing. So LinkedIn is a powerful platform for professionals. So this trend is still increasing after the pandemic. What's the most challenging thing you have to do for your job?
Oh.
Besides giving feedback to your colleagues.
It's probably not an original one, but I think for anyone that works in social media, just like the constant change that we have to deal with. Twitter over the past couple of weeks is a perfect example of this. But when you add working in the technology industry to that, it's just an absolute double whammy, because the tech industry is always changing, social media is always changing, so you have to be like willing to adapt and be constantly learning and just working at such a fast speed whilst always keeping that end goal in mind. I'd say another big one, if I can take one directly from my role, is just making sure that the business sees value in what I'm doing, because I'm spending time supporting and speaking with our most senior executives, so the head of our APJ business, our CTO within the region, the head of our partner business. So any time that they spend with me is time that they're not spending with like a customer or another external stakeholder. So I need to make sure that what I'm directing them to do, and we always work as as a couple, is impactful. They're creating impactful content that is going to achieve what they want to do, but then really important, reporting this back to them so that they see where this is driving value. And our previous CTO at the organization, who has now retired, when I first met him, he wasn't particularly sure about using LinkedIn. He was active on Twitter, wasn't sure about LinkedIn, but I was able to show him the data from like what he could achieve, and then continually share that data with him as he went along. And now he's a massive advocate for the platform. So yeah, making sure I'm communicating value is probably one of the biggest challenges.
This goes me to my next question is, how do you measure success in this job role? Because when social media manager have to do the reporting, okay, they have a list with metrics that they put it into a report. But in your case, at what metrics or how do you measure success in your case?
Yeah, again, really good question. And yeah, exactly what you highlight there, with it being quite different to other social media roles, and particularly like an e-commerce B2C role. So yeah, look at a number of measures, both quantitative and qualitative. We're definitely interested in those measures like reach and engagement and clicks, followers, engagement rate, earned media value. But we always want to make sure that we're not getting distracted by vanity metrics or really big numbers if they're not helping us deliver on what we're trying to achieve. And that can be important, or is really important, that I communicate that to employees and to executives, because sometimes people can get overexcited by a really big number. And I just have to remind them, is that communicating the key message, and is it engaging with key accounts? And that can also be true if you're looking at what like peers or competitors are doing, because sometimes you can see on social media that people are posting content that maybe isn't the content that you would be looking to post, but it seems to be performing really well. But it's all about asking, okay, but what is that actually achieving? So as well as those quantitative measures, I look at qualitative things such as the individuals and the organizations that have engaged or commented on posts. And really, for me, the gold standard is when an executive comes to me and says, oh, I went to an event with X customer and they said that they'd been seeing all of my content on social media and they really liked it, or they'd read an article. And then obviously if those individuals start to advocate for us on social media because they've seen what our executives are doing, that is, absolutely fantastic. I have in the past had a business leader feed back to me that they met with a customer and they said that seeing their content on social media was actually why they decided to engage with the brand. And yeah, it doesn't happen often, but when you get feedback like that, it's just absolutely amazing because you're actually, you know, tying what you're doing. And like I say, like typically it's in that awareness and the advocacy space, but you're actually driving that and tying it to business value, which is really important. We use quite a few different tools to do this. So we utilize Hootsuite, we've got Talkwalker, Meltwater, Dynamic Signal, Google and Adobe Analytics. I think they're the main ones, but we do still have gaps. So for us, LinkedIn is a really important platform from an advocacy perspective, but just because of a number of restrictions to do with the API, and we do know that we have gaps in that data.
Yeah. I think that the way people find the value moves from the traditional marketing, move through this type of messages on social media. They see a post, they engage with that post, and later on, when the needs appear, they go to that brand or they go to that person and ask questions, or they maybe ask. They go to the sales team and ask questions directly. So I think that it's important for those who are C-levels or I don't know in the sales positions, marketing positions. It's important to build a presence on social media, on LinkedIn or on Twitter mostly, because there is value for both for you as a professional, but also for the business and for your objective as a professional that you have. Moving a little bit from this job role, can you tell us what's the future of social media? How do you see social media in the near future, let's say?
Yeah, I think saying near future is good there. I think it's just so hard to predict with social media in the long term. I think it will always be that way. I think we'll forever see social media evolving, which is what makes it really exciting for me because you're continually kept on your toes. But in the short term, I think we're going to see increased focus on user-generated content, probably for more micro-influencers. And I think we're already seeing when you look at tech companies reporting their earnings that there's this decrease in traditional ad spend on social media. So I'm quite excited to see where that goes, particularly because of the space that I work in. I think that provides lots of different opportunities. I think the brands that are going to succeed are going to be the people that work really well with these communities and really become much more like a media or an entertainment company, because at the end of the day, you go to social media to be educated or to be entertained. You're not going there to be marketed to. So I think brands, as well as the individuals that I work with, need to remember that.
To close up this podcast episode, I have a fire up session for you. So let's see what you choose. Long form video or short form video?
I still really like long form, and I know a lot of my colleagues will probably want to push me towards short form, but yeah, I like long form. I like to get into the detail.
TikTok or YouTube?
YouTube.
Online or offline?
Can I say both?
No, you have to choose one.
Online for work, offline for personal life.
Okay. Thank you so much, Emma. Who should be my next guest on this podcast?
I'd love to hear from somebody from Instagram, so Instagram's actual social media team, because I think they do a fantastic job of utilizing user gen content to showcase their features, and that's something I'd like to do more of, so I'd love to hear from them.
That's interesting. That will be an interesting guest for me as well. So thank you so much, Emma, for sharing insights from your job role and what you do for VMWare. Where people can find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, so LinkedIn/Emma Grace Heath, or you can find me on Twitter and Mastodon now at It's Emma Heath.
Thank you. All the links will be included in the description in the podcast episode. Everyone, you can dive in and see the links there. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Emma.
Thanks for having me, Adina.